That's right, another week, and we are talking Madden football as the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, fueled by Gatorade, continues. I'm Fran Duffy, and I think we've got a great show for you here on episode number 177. At the top of this week's show, we've got Chalk Talk, where this week I'm catching up with Anthony White, who is a game designer for EA Sports, working specifically with the Madden NFL franchise, and we're going to talk with Anthony all about the creation of playbooks and what teams call which plays in the game. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a conversation I've been looking forward to having, honestly, for the last couple of years that Anthony and I have followed each other on Twitter. So getting a chance to chat with him today is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to go into the process of building out all the different playbooks for the game, how they decide which team gets which plays in their playbook, and all the research that goes into it. A ton of work in the pre-planning process of that game. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get into my chat now with Anthony White.
Let's get down to business. It's time for Chalk Talk.
I'm really excited to welcome in our guest for Chalk Talk this week, and that's EA Sports game designer Anthony White, who works with the Madden NFL franchise. Like I said earlier, Anthony, I want to introduce you the right way, and I feel like there's no better way than to say, for all of our listeners out there that play Madden, if you want someone to complain to about your ratings for your favorite player, just hit up Anthony on Twitter, and you can find someone else to complain about rather than the Madden Twitter handle. Anthony, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, how you doing, friend? Great to be on.
No, it's great. Honestly, you and I have followed each other on Twitter for the last couple of years, and I've always thought you would be such a fun guest to bring onto the show and just talk about your process. And I feel like I kind of have an idea of what your role is with the company and with the game, but let's just start there. Give us a picture of what your job is and what your role is and how you got there and things of that nature. Give us an idea of what you do for EA Sports.
Sure. Well, first off, I'm the guy that's sort of known as our playbook designer. So essentially, if you've played the Madden game during the last 14 years since I've been there, chances are, many of the plays that you see, offense, defense, special teams, I'm the one that created those plays. And not only is it about just creating the plays, but there's a lot that goes into it, with the AI for our characters, on offense, defense, because, we put a play in on either side of the ball, but we need the AI to be able to properly execute that particular play, and we need the other side of the ball to be able to act accordingly. So a lot of that entails, coming up with designs, and a lot of those designs, think of an architect, when you're putting together a blueprint for a home. Well, that's sort of what I'm doing. I'm designing out, the play, how it's going to work, the AI, working with our engineering team, to make sure that we have all of the elements from a logic standpoint in place to make that play work. And then also working with our animation team so that we can get the characters in the game to mimic the techniques and the actions that you see within the play. And then we get that tested, and we move on to the next one. So that sort of encompasses, what I do at EA, among other things. But that's my primary role.
So you said you've been there for 14 years. How did you first get in the door there?
Well, oddly enough, today, now in this day and age, people can go to school and, get degrees and advanced graduate level degrees, in game design, game production, and different things of that nature. But how I got started, actually, it was like the early 90s, actually late 90s, if you will. One of my friends was a blogger, and he was basically devoting his blog to Madden. Now, this is when blogging was still sort of a, newer thing, newer trend in those days. And through him, he actually started, getting the attention of people at EA. And basically through that connection, I started working with him in terms of working on writing articles for his blog, like strategies and, how you can actually incorporate real-life principles into your Madden play. Well, fast forward a couple of years later, I became a member of the what's now called the Game Changers program, but back in the day it was called the EA Community Leaders program, and that was run totally out of our corporate offices out in the San Francisco Bay Area. One evening, I was actually writing an article for EASports.com on the Indianapolis Colts stretch run game. This is when they had, Edgerton James, Rodney, Peyton Manning, Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, that whole crew. Well, I'm looking at the game and I'm noticing, some things that I felt that needed some, improvement to really, mimic what the true Colts stretch game, entailed. So I actually wrote a letter to my contact out at in the Bay Area, and he in turn sent it to the people here at the studio down here in Florida, and they reached out to me. We talked on the phone with some of the producers for the game at that time. Apparently, I obviously impressed upon them that I was someone who was worth continuing having conversations with, and then they invited me down for an interview, which was in the fall of 2004. And even if I didn't get the job, I was just thrilled, just to be, just to have the opportunity to come down here and be able to talk to those guys. Because I was familiar with them. I read about them in various gaming magazines, and 8-hour interview process with the entire design team, much like what a coach would probably go through, interview a team like the Eagles coaching staff, if you will. We touched on all facets of the game, design, ideas, you name it. And basically, about a couple of weeks later, they extended an offer, and then January 2005, I started, and I've been here ever since. As a matter of fact, the first Madden game I actually ever worked on was the Madden 06 game, and that was the one with Donovan McNabb on the cover. And, obviously, Eagles fans will probably be familiar with that one, and that's the one that introduced the Vision Cone that year. So that was actually the first Madden game that I worked on. And, obviously, there's an Eagles connection there.
Sure. So now that we know how you got your foot in the door there, you mentioned, you wrote about, the things just about the stretch run game with the Colts and things like that. Yeah. How did you expand and further just kind of grow your base of knowledge about the game? Obviously, you're so heavily involved with everything surrounding that franchise from an X and O standpoint. How did you continue to build that knowledge base?
Well, that actually stems back to, all the way back to high school days. I didn't play beyond the high school level, but even then, I always kind of thought about football from a strategical, a tactical standpoint. We'd be in practice, and I would be thinking to myself, wow, if we could just move this guy from safety to outside backer and out fire three, I think he can. And, I would have conversations with my coaches about things of that nature. But as the years went on, just that thirst for knowledge and understanding about various techniques, I would actually go and attend coaching clinics. I actually got into a little bit of youth coaching, and that really actually helped me expand because obviously if you're dealing with younger kids who are playing football, you really need to be grounded in fundamentals. Make sure, A, that they're using the proper techniques and fundamentals, but two, from a safety standpoint, because, parents are trusting their kids to play and trusting you to make sure that you have their best interest in mind when you're coaching various techniques and fundamentals. So that actually, like most coaches, you go out and you try to learn as much as you can. You constantly trying to, improve and, go to clinics, talk to coaches, and it goes all the way to today. We actually bring in coaches to our studio to talk to us about a certain trend or certain technique or whatever that's going on in the league. I actually have a a list of coaches that I trust that I can actually call at a moment's notice and get info on a certain thing that I may not be totally up to speed on. But it's a never-ending process, and it's fun, though, and it's something that I truly, thoroughly enjoy, just expanding that knowledge in all levels of the game. Even now, I still will look at high school football, college football, and obviously NFL.
Do you get coaches now that you deal with that say, yeah, like when I was younger, I played the game, I played Madden?
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, we had a coach here about 2 weeks ago, and he is very knowledgeable not only about the game of Madden, but he actually talked to us about how he uses the Madden game almost sort of like a virtual trainer, if you will, for training quarterbacks, because he mentioned to us a lot of the things that we've added over the years. It allows him to create an environment where he can actually, take it to another level, if you will, by using real-life rules and real-life concepts to show his quarterbacks, hey, well, this is what you do when you see this look, or this is where you go with this particular progression. So not only he told us that he did that with a lot of his players, and actually one of his players was a former OC in the NFL. So, and then of course, we talk to a lot of coaches I talk to a lot of coaches on a regular basis, especially some of the younger coaches. They grew up playing the Madden game, and we had coaches, active coaches right now from various teams who've actually sent us very good detailed feedback on features they'd like to see in the game. So yeah, it's actually pretty cool to talk to coaches who are fans of the game, but who also have an interest in seeing and helping the game grow, evolve, and improve.
Sure. I only ask that because I know for me and for so many of our listeners, I got to think that when growing up, that game helped them become bigger fans. I liked football when I was like a little kid. I loved other sports as well. But really, when I started playing in Madden, that was what really kind of elevated my love for the game and my thirst for knowledge for the game and wanting to learn more, playing in franchise mode and, helping creating plays. You mentioned earlier, being in class. I remember sitting in Mr. Moreland's social studies class in like 10th grade, 9th grade, and drawing up plays because in Madden, the first year they allowed you to create your own playbook, coming up with plays. And Mr. Moreland, probably not listening to this podcast, I believe he was a Washington Redskins fan. But if you are listening for some reason, sorry, Mr. Moreland, I wasn't really paying attention too much, but it's I got to think that with all these young coaches now coming up in the game at every level, so many of them have to have that background playing the game, and to me that's fascinating. So let's get now into your process, and there's kind of two ends of this that I want to get into with. There's got to be obviously the development going into the new release of a game, but then also the upkeep because there's so many, the new releases and things like that, and the updated rosters and playbooks as the season's going on. And I actually want to start there, and we'll kind of work our way backwards. You're very, very active on social media in the fall, and I know you've retweeted. So I'll post shots for Eagle Eye columns, and you'll quote tweet and say, hey, yeah, we added this play, to the Eagles playbook 3 weeks ago because of how often they ran it in the first half of the season. To me, like that is so fascinating. So just take us through what a typical week is like for you in season and how often you guys do the updates and things like that to change things in a team's playbook in season.
Well, last season was, first off, last season was the first year that we've actually started the process of updating the playbooks throughout the season. And this year, we're really going to expand on that for Madden 20. But to give you an idea of what my work day or schedule is like during season, we're generally in what we call production at that point in time. So in terms of the NFL, I get to the office every morning about 6 a.m. And, one of the first things I start doing is just watching film because even though I may see a cool play, and it depends on the play that I see on Sunday or Monday night, when I watch the film, the first question I ask myself, first off, it's a pretty cool play, but do we have the AI in place needed to execute that particular play. If we have the AI, B, do we have the animation in place already to create that play? If not, is this something that we can easily get, or do we have to special case and try to create something with our animators, or do we have to go and mocap it? And then if we have all of those pieces in place, then it's pretty easy and simple for me to go ahead and put the play in the game. Regardless if it's a defensive play, most of the time it's offensive because that's where, that's more noticeable to most Madden fans, if you will. But that's generally the process. We get the film every Tuesday morning. And then basically, once we get it uploaded and we get it all synced up and everything ready to go, that's when my process starts in earnest. And we also have access to other tools and resources that really help in that process in terms of breaking teams down, in terms of being able to generate cut-ups, look at tendencies, both formationally, personnel, break it down to a very, very granular level in terms of the types of things we're looking for. Some of the things maybe we have to sort of put in the save it for the next year's ship game, if you will. So, for example, if it's something cool that I'm going to be seeing in this 2019 NFL season, well, I can either, A, if it's something that I can put into the Madden 20 game once it's released, I will go ahead and do that. If not, I'll actually, okay, well, this is something that's going to require a little bit more time, a little bit more efforts on our part. So we'll push this off to Madden 21. And then that's sort of how that process goes. But for the most part, though, I spend a lot of my day literally, just breaking down film, making cut-ups, talking with our animators, talking with the other designers, going over concepts like, okay, well, this is what this thing is here. This is how this would work in our game. And then if it's something new or something that I'm not totally familiar with, that's when I'll reach out to some of my coaches, my coach contacts, both active coaches and also, too, get a lot of great info from former NFL coaches who aren't actively coaching at the moment. So those guys are really great because they actually, people don't realize that they're obviously pretty in tune with what's going on in the league, and they provide a lot of good, useful info. So that kind of summarizes my day during the season, which is my favorite part of the development cycle.
So obviously there's going to be continuity when there's a coaching staff that stays from one season to the next. Doug Peterson now entering year 4. So that you have the same base of plays going from, we'll say, Madden 19 to Madden 20. I want to ask you, though, about the other side of the coin when there's a new coaching staff and maybe a coach that hasn't been a coordinator before or hasn't been a head coach before, and now it's time to kind of incorporate their playbook. What is that process like for trying to pick from basically what plays are going to constitute the options now for fans when they go to play the game?
Yeah, and that's actually something that we actually. Not only with me with the playbooks world, but also too that has an impact on our franchise mode as well and other elements of our game because obviously we have an agreement with the various coaches, the NFL and the coaches be in the game. So when it comes to actually their playbook, I do a lot of research on terms of that coach's background, where he's been in the past, who he's worked for, what systems he's been exposed to, and then I try to sort of, and maybe anticipate, what their particular offensive playbook would look like. A good example of that, a really interesting example, when Chip Kelly became coach of the Eagles, prior to the 2013 season. Well, at that time, we were still making our college football game, NCAA football, so we actually had a pretty good handle on Oregon's playbook in that our NCAA football game. So, the thought was, okay, well, we'll just put this into the Eagles playbook. But then Chip Kelly, I believe Pat Shermer, who's now the head coach of the Giants, was his first offensive coordinator. So, that we kind of stepped back for a minute and start to think, okay, well, he's a spread offense, fun and gun, high tempo, all these cool things, read options. But then, Pat Shermer is more of a traditional West Coast offense, pro style. So do we blend those two together, or do we err on the side of, okay, well, Chip Kelly's an offensive head coach, we'll just put his stuff in. So we decided to go with, more of the spread elements that Chip Kelly had run in college. And then a funny story, when we go out and visit Coach Madden every year, I don't think people realize he actually is not on a day basis in terms of dictating what we do in terms of our workloads and such, but he is actually actively involved with the game. So, and I personally get to go out there and meet with him and show him, and he and I will have long conversations about X's and O's. He wanted to see that Chip Kelly playbook, so I loaded it up with the game, and I don't know if Coach Madden thought we had the wishbone in there or something or what, but he really wanted to see it because he had always told us the league was a shotgun league. So we started thumbing through it, and I was like, yeah, Coach, well, this formation they ran in Oregon, this, and this. And, so that's something that we really try to pay a lot of attention to. Same thing when Coach Peterson took over for the Eagles. Well, I spent a lot of time looking at Kansas City's offense, and, I use that sort of as the base. And we try to differentiate it a little bit so it's not exactly the same as the previous team because, a lot of our users may not understand why we do that, because even to now we'll get people say, hey, well, just last week someone's like, hey, well, the Dolphins playbook is the exact same playbook as the Patriots right now. Well, yeah, it's because the head coach came there and the offensive coordinator for the Dolphins, he's the receivers coach for the Patriots last year. So we have to start somewhere as a base. Same thing with Denver, and same thing with Cincinnati with Zach Taylor coming in off Sean McVay's staff with the Rams. So it's a process that we really focus on quite heavily, to try to get that accuracy and authenticity.
So you mentioned, it's funny, you talk about Chip Kelly and going from college to the NFL. I wanted to ask you about Cliff Kingsbury going from Texas Tech to the Arizona Cardinals. You add in a guy like Kyler Murray coming from Oklahoma, similar kind of coaching tree, similar philosophy. To me, like that is just going to be fascinating just to see, okay, like what are they cooking up now for the Arizona Cardinals when Madden 20 comes out? Because, so many of the air raid concepts are prevalent throughout the NFL already. So are you kind of taking a little bit of the ones that are already prevalent, going back to Texas Tech, meshing it all together, maybe even mixing a little Oklahoma in there as well? Or is it mostly Texas Tech?
It's a little bit of both, but it's mostly Texas Tech. As a matter of fact, before we hopped on this call, that's why I've been watching Texas Tech film for the last day or so, just breaking it down, all their formations, all their personnel groups, looking at the things that first and foremost that I think that would really translate well to the NFL. And like you said, a lot of the core passing concepts are being run in the NFL, but the thing that really surprised me was at least last year, the 2018 film that I have, is the run game. A lot of the counter GT stuff, a lot of the outside zone stuff. So Cliff Kingsbury, he had a pretty broad run game last year at Texas Tech. And then also, too, I'm going to be looking at a lot of Oklahoma film, obviously, to kind of get a gauge on some of the things that Kyler Murray did well. And like you said, since they're coming from similar coaching trees, obviously Lincoln Riley, the head coach at Oklahoma, coached under Mike Leach and Cliff Kingsbury, the coach for the Cardinals. He obviously played under Mike Leach, but obviously, those offenses, they sort of, while they keep a lot of the core basic air raid principles, they sort of, evolved each in their own way over the years. And, coaches had a twist to it. So I'm trying to encapsulate a lot of those ideas and so far, it's been keeping me on my toes, and I think when we release the game, we'll have a playbook that's representative of at least our initial take on what the Cardinals offense may look like. Now, the great thing about what I mentioned mentioned earlier about being able to update the playbooks on a much higher cadence throughout the year. That's one of our goals for the Madden 20 product. So starting with the first preseason game up until week one, we'll definitely be paying attention to what they're doing, and then especially as the season goes on. But it is a fun offense to watch, though, by the way. Definitely different from the traditional NFL stuff that I'm usually watching.
Oh, no question. It's going to be fascinating just to see, what that pairing is like and what they decide to do. It's going to be very, very fun to watch that team. Let me ask you this question. I know we can't get into, some of the confidential stuff, the things that haven't been announced yet by EA Sports, but what are some of the new wrinkles that you can share, things that are going to be new about the game this year that you're excited to see for Madden 20?
Well, some of the things we can share, and we've already released this info. The fact that we're adding RPOs to Madden 20, and I can tell you, obviously, because I'm the product owner on that particular project, the RPOs that was heavily influenced by the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. And the thing about the play is those types of concepts. It's not necessarily the fact that we didn't want to do it or, we couldn't do it, but plays of that nature, they take time from a design standpoint, AI standpoint, animation standpoint, all of those things that we talked about earlier. So we don't really want to rush something out the door that falls way short of user expectations. So, obviously, we have to take our time and make sure that we got it right, but I'm truly excited about it. And some of the focus groups that we've had in already, and pretty much everyone in the building here, is excited about the RPOs, and they think that just the way it's transformed, definitely college football, but even now the NFL, because you'll look up and every team will use some type of RPO in their offense, some more than others, obviously, but it's changed the way people we think will play the game. Definitely changed the way that I play the game. I can't even pick up Madden 19, previous Madden, anymore because of that whole element. And, of course, a lot of the ones that we get, obviously, I think I've watched every Eagle RPO cut up, not only for 2018 season, but 2017 as well, just to sort of get a feel for the types of things they're doing. The Eagles, not only them, but the Chiefs. The Indianapolis Colts, another big team that majors in that. Obviously, we got a connection there with the Eagles staff. But it's something that we're really excited about. And then the other thing, too, with the way that we're doing our animation technology, we talked about, when we look at a play to add to the game, do we have correct animations and AI to go with it? A play that I think Eagles fans would be interested in is we actually have the Philly special. That's actually up and running in Madden 20. The interesting thing about the Philly special play, well, it's such a unique play, and it has all these elements that are very well known that when you see all of those actions taking place to the quarterback, the way he lines up in the gun or the pistol formation, if you will, he walks up to the line of scrimmage, taps the tackle on the backside, and then the ball gets snapped, and then the reverse and the throw. All of that's recreated in the game. But then, me and my engineer and my animator, we were sitting back and we were thinking, well, every time you play is cool, but every time you do that, you'll know that that's that play. So we actually created our own couple fake versions of that play because that's the other thing that's a little bit different in the video game world. Sometimes, you'll see a play on film out of a formation, and a team will use that on a fairly consistent basis. Well, they may only show a couple things, so we obviously can put those plays in, but we have to sort of start to take some creative liberties, if you will, to sort of think about, okay, well, they ran this deal here, but they probably have some type of other thing off of that. Even though they didn't show it on film, or they may not have it at all, I don't know. Well, we have to sort of take that into consideration in the Madden game because, if you, Fran, for example, if you're playing Pete, I believe, if you guys are sitting on the couch and you call that play and he sees all that action, okay, yeah, I know you're running really special. But if he sees that same action and then, oh, it's a fake Philly special or something like that. Well, that sort of keeps him on his toes. So that's something that in the Madden world that we have to actually also take into consideration. And I'm doing a lot of that right now with the Texas Tech playbook. Well, it's not Texas Tech. It's the Arizona Cardinals playbook, studying Texas Tech film, because they did a lot of interesting things. A lot of teams do, actually.
So real quickly, it will be called Philly Special. Like, I'll be able to call Philly Special. I get down on the goal line.
Actually, a funny story. Yes, and that's the way the animal is named Philly in the formation. The formation it's under the pistol formation, but the set is called Philly. And then when you look at the play, it's called Philly Special, and the other play is called Fake Philly Special.
Nice.
Now, the funny thing about it, I was actually asking my boss, who's a former NFL offensive lineman. I was like, hey, well, a couple other teams ran this. A couple copycats popped up in the league last year. I know week 17. I'm not sure if it was Philly Special week that week, but the Dolphins ran it. I think the Falcons ran it. So I was like, hey, well, what do we call it? Do we call it Miami Special? Do we call it, I know the Browns ran it. Do we call it Cleveland Special in their playbook? So we're actually just going to leave it Philly, even if we put it in other teams' playbook.
So my last question for you, because that's phenomenal, is going back to the RPOs. Can you take us through it? I don't know how deep you can get into it, but can you take us through what is that execution like in the game? What is the user experience like for the player when they're executing an RPO? Because I find that to be fascinating. Do you have like first level, second level, third level RPOs where they're reading DBs and linebackers or D linemen, or is it how deep do you get into the weeds there?
Yeah, we have all. We have all of it.
That's awesome.
And obviously we have some news coming out on this. We have a stream coming out May 24th, I believe. We're going to be talking about RPOs and playbooks. We'll be going in much depth. But in terms of the actual play, all the things that you talked about are there in terms of the types of RPOs that you can run. Like if you look at the NFL, the main one that teams run is where we're reading that backside backer and we lock the tackle on to that DN, and we read that backside B gap player, and we can see obviously he hesitates. We're going to hand the ball off if he fits the run. We're going to pop that what we call peak concept, peak pass behind him. So that's probably the most prevalent one that you'll see. But we also too have the ability to run the triple option version of where you'll be able to read the DN, and then you'll progress to the next read where you'll be able to pass off the force defender to either like a bubble screen or a quick screen outside. And then, of course, even under center, the old now screen stuff, where if you're like line up in the I formation straight up power O or outside zone, inside zone, or whatever scheme you got going on there, you'll be able to throw the smoke screen backside and, really just snap the ball and, icons for the receiver comes up and you throw, and the quarterback, just like in real life, he's going to grip it and rip it, So, we try to make sure that we have all those bases covered in terms of the types of RPOs that you'll be able to have access to and go from there. And, I've actually had a couple of my colleagues mention, hey, I don't think I'm going to call any other play but an RPO. But obviously, I tell them, oh, yeah, you're probably still going to want to mix in some other stuff because even in the NFL, they do mix in other things. And, of course, we've also did a lot of tuning with our defensive AI to make sure that they can react to those plays appropriately. But it's a fun play, and, I think you guys will really get a kick out of it.
Well, I cannot wait to see what that looks like. Anthony, really, really appreciate the time. We could go for another half hour here just talking about gameplay and what it would look like, but really appreciate it here. Thanks for joining us on Chalk Talk here on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast.
Sounds great, Fran. Thank you. Really enjoyed it.
Well, that was just awesome stuff for Anthony White. And obviously, look, all you younger fans out there, or if you're an older fan and you have a younger fan in your life, August 2nd is when Madden comes out. And you don't have to wait that long, though, to get something special for the young fan in your life, because the Eagles actually have a Junior Pro Day coming up. And Junior Pro Day, really just the ultimate football experience for the young Eagles fan in your life. You go, it's just something you don't really are able to replicate. You can run through skills and drills with current players on the team. You can meet Swoop, enjoy a full day, fun football stuff out in the sun. It's a lot of fun. This year's event is actually going to be held on Saturday, June 1st at the NovaCare Complex, so right here in South Philadelphia. So all you have to do to get your tickets, visit PhiladelphiaEagles.com/JR Pro Day for tickets, and just a really, really fun opportunity for kids. I know I've sent my nephews there to this Junior Pro Day, and they had a blast. So absolutely something you want to try and take advantage of. All right, again, great stuff from Anthony, and you can follow him just like I do on Twitter at @awhite_73. And while you're at it, I'm at FDuffy3. That's where you can follow me and get all the podcasts I'm a part of and all the X's and O's content that we produce at PhiladelphiaEagles.com. And you know how much I appreciate everybody that promotes this podcast on all forms of social media. And that is one way to support the show. But the best way is to go onto Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, wherever you listen. Leave us a 5-star rating, leave us a comment, and we can get you on the show here. And I want to give a shout out to Shane B118, who left a comment and a 5-star rating on our Apple Podcast page asking the following question. He said he loved the draft recap with Greg Cosell, and he asked the question, how do you see Dougie P using the personnel we have on this team? I get chills thinking about Alshon, Djax, Nelly, Ertz, and Miles Sanders on the field all at once, not to mention the enormous red zone package of Alshon Jeffrey, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, and Jordan Howard. Do you think Doug will try to be even more creative this year now that he has so many interchangeable pieces? Maybe he can try and make Nelson Aguilar into more of that chess piece gadget type of guy. So thank you, Shane. Appreciate the question. To me, yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I was most excited about coming out of draft weekend and really just this entire offseason in general. When you add the number of weapons that the Eagles did this offseason, you named them all. I mean, you get Deshaun Jackson back in the fold. You bring in Miles Sanders. You bring in J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. And now you start looking at these different personnel packages and what you can do on offense. Remember, you have 5 eligible receivers, so only 5 of them can be on the field at once. But you can mix and match and throw in, 2 back sets, 2 tight end sets, 3 and 4 receiver sets, and try and create favorable matchups depending on the week. And ultimately, what you really want to do is then get into, and the Eagles have done this so often in the past, is get into those personnel groupings and then go up tempo. So force a defense to say, okay, we're going to put out 2 tight ends, and you're going to try and say, okay, they may run the ball here with Jordan Howard. Well, no, now we have the ability to spread you out and do different things because you have versatility with your running backs, you have versatility with your tight ends, and when those pieces have the ability to do a number of different things like they can, now you can say, okay, we can attack you defensively in so many different ways. So to me, yeah, the versatility of all these players is outstanding, and it gives Doug Peterson and this coaching staff so much flexibility, but now it really takes it to the next level and say, now we can really attack defenses in a multitude of ways. Once we get into hurry up, once we get into up tempo, now we can try and find different ways to attack teams by game plan. It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, thanks, Shane, and all of you out there for your continued support of this show and all the rest of our podcast offerings at PhiladelphiaEagles.com. All right, that'll do it. Another great show from Anthony White. Again, just outstanding information on the Madden franchise. Really, really fun conversation with Anthony. Again, you can follow him on Twitter at @A_White73. Just a really, really fun guy to follow, especially in the football season. He puts out a lot of great stuff. But thanks to Anthony and all of you out there listening, whether you're on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Google Play, and of course on PhiladelphiaEagles.com and the Eagles mobile app. Thank you. And again, one more time, take a few seconds, go on to Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, give us that rating, give us that comment. It's the best way to support the show, boost us up in the rankings a little bit so more Eagles fans, more X's and O's fans can find the program and listen to it and help us out a little bit. All that being said, I think that'll do it. Another show in the books here on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, fueled by Gatorade. For everybody here at the NovaCare Complex, I'm Fran Duffy. We will talk to you next week.